The ongoing drama over the Epstein files is still haunting you-know-who. And yesterday, the DOJ fired prosecutor and James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey, who was prosecuted for both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's cases. He also continues to insist there's nothing to see here. And then he took a shot at anyone who thinks otherwise. Take a look.
Has your attorney general told you this was a hoax? What evidence have you seen
It's
of
not
that?
the attorney general, no. I know it's a hoax. It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net, and so they try and do the Democrats' work.
Does that mean that you're effectively disowning any supporters who are
No,
now...
but I lost a lot of faith in certain people, yeah. I lost, because they got duped by the Democrats.
So suddenly now, this is our fault.
Yeah.
This is the Democrats' fault. It's very, very freaky.
Yeah.
But a lot of his supporters are still convinced there is a cover-up happening. How are they going to feel about being called stupid?
I don't think they like it, and what I mean, I think there's a real schism going on in the party right now. And what's interesting is that Elon Musk won't stop posting about it. Mike Pence came out of hiding to talk about it. He said the time has come to release the files. Nikki Haley is out there.
Release the Kraken! Sorry.
Nikki Haley is out slamming the secrecy around Epstein. And I think, and now his base is starting to get mad. I think that these people like Pence and Musk and the rest of them and the Republicans in the Congress, they have secretly thought that what he's been doing is very destructive. I think they believe that, but they're too scared to say it. They're afraid to lose their job. They're intimidated by Donald Trump, and he can be vicious. He'll primary them. They're scared for their families. I heard some of them, right? They said that they've been intimidating their own family, and now they see this opportunity to get him, and they are seizing it.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is the Democrats were never the ones talking about it.
No.
This has been an age-old, like, Republican, especially MAGA, talking point that goes to QAnon. Like, this is something they've been talking about for so long. So to blame Democrats and then dumb Republicans, I'm surprised he didn't say dumb Democrats, but he's going after his own people, which has never done well for politicians. But I read a fascinating article today about an attorney, Brad Edwards. It was an ABC News story, and he has represented over 200 of the victims, and he's been doing this for almost 20 years. So he knows everything you can know about what's been released publicly and not publicly. And he goes into something that, as someone who is concerned about this case, it landed with me. He was saying Jeffrey Epstein was about Jeffrey Epstein. The majority of people you're going to discover and what he's attached to are not, it's not as big as you want it to be, but there are some still remaining mysteries, and that's the sweetheart deal and how he got his money. So he said he is going to incriminate.
Well, that's the biggest mystery.
That's the biggest part, because in my mind, it was this pedophile ring that was, and there are definitely pedophiles involved here, but he said it's not the volume. A lot of people think that's the conspiracy, but there's stuff going on that could reveal he was an asset, whether domestically or abroad. You know, he's something that needs to still be revealed, and he encourages them to release more documents with the victims as the most sensitive part, making sure it suits them and protects them most.
I also just feel like if Trump is trying to convince people there's no there's nothing to see there, he's doing literally the exact opposite of what you would do. Firing the prosecutor who tried Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, that's going to open the door to 1,000 more questions. Claiming it's all a hoax by Democrats, despite the fact that Epstein was tried and died during his first term, not when Joe Biden was in office, and then attacking his own supporters while they're already unhappy with you.
Why do you think he's doing that?
He's got nothing else.
I was never much of a my belief generally around this was he's a really bad guy. There's really bad, ugly things that are going to come out. But I didn't think it was some big sweeping thing. I thought that was maybe a little conspiratorial. Now I have questions, if I'm being honest. I have questions about whose names may appear in these documents, what might exist, what the DOJ has, because they are protesting too much on something that there is so much public interest in.
They're protesting too much.
The lady Duff protested.
The one thing,
but here's what that's not my question. My question is, why is Donald Trump being so dumb?
Because I don't.
Did you expect
the PR of it is not great.
You mean by attacking his base?
But he can be dumb. Yeah, the really dumbest
I have
thing.
a theory on this.
By attacking his own base.
I have a theory on
and
this.
by
just-
keeping
What
this
is the
Epstein
theory?
story alive.
So Donald Trump in his first term, and actually much of this term, has benefited from the fact that Fox News is basically an arm of the Republican Party.
Right.
He can call up Fox News primetime hosts, and they're going to say, never mind, we're not talking about this anymore. But something he wasn't banking on that's new this term is this ecosystem of podcasters who helped put him into office, who have tens
Alex
of millions
Jones.
of listeners, Joe Rogan. Theo Vaughn, who are not beholden to him. They truly aren't, and they are not going to let this go. If Donald Trump calls them up and says, Joe Rogan, stop talking about this, Joe
gonna talk
Rogan
more.
does not care at all. He's going to talk about it more. And he's never had that, a truly unaccountable
So he
to
doesn't
him
know how to
right-wing
handle it.
media ecosystem.
Yeah, I don't think he knows how to handle it.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't think he was banking on it. But the one thing, I think if you look at it on a macro level, something that's really disconcerting is the fact that the Justice Department fired Maureen Comey. I mean, this was the lead prosecutor in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, the lead prosecutor in the Jeffrey Epstein case before he killed himself awaiting trial, the lead prosecutor in the Diddy case. She's been with the Justice Department for over 10 years. She led the public corruption section. I mean, she's one of the best of the best. And so, generally, federal prosecutors are protected somewhat, especially federal employees, from being basically fired for political reasons. That's something that we have not seen in a long time. And I was reading something, and I think a lot of people should take a look at this, that Stacey Abrams wrote. And she wrote about how tyranny takes hold, and there are 10 steps to autocracy. And one of those steps is to harass opposition parties, to harass the civil sector, and especially to harass the legal industry, and to take out your political opponents. And so we stopped talking about Project 2025 a long time ago. This is part of Project 2025. This is part of the plan. So let's remember that these things that seem to be a distraction, that he seems to be doing this and he seems to be doing that, he seems to be doing that, this is all part of a plan towards a step towards authoritarianism, towards a dictatorship,
Well, let's say we're
towards
kind of
fascism.
in the authoritarian.
I believe we are at this point
Yeah.
when you're seeing a lead prosecutor, one of the best, be fired without cause from her job at the Justice
That's
Department.
a red flag, isn't it?
It is a red flag, and that is what we see dictators do. And so I'd like people to actually sort of look at it from up here instead of looking at it very closely. This is part of a master plan.
But none of that could be because she overshot the Diddy charges?
No way.
Okay.
No way.
Would she be in a position where she could give interviews about what she knows? I mean, some of this trial was public.
That's why it's a little silly to fire her, because when you are a federal prosecutor, you don't make comments to the press. You only go through the press office. You only go through the communications
But I would worry
office.
about Ghislaine
She's not-
Maxwell also. She knows everything.
Comey is
She's
now
not
not
much to lose.
And
She's
she's
in
still
jail.
with us.
And Comey's not beholden anymore. And the fact is, Maureen Comey fought so that these, sensitive videotapes, transcripts were not released. She is the person that was sort of standing in the way of whether or not there's a list.
Well,
so why fire her?
Again,
It
the
doesn't
question
make
is he
sense.
losing it?
Well, you know what? There's
Unless
so
it's
much
part of
going
Project
on.
2025.
There's so much going on, and his base are pissed. The farmers are pissed. People who have farms are pissed. People who are trying to pay their taxes and do all the stuff that you are expected to do as an American are pissed because you don't know where your Social Security check, when it's coming, if it's coming. We're like, they've been trying to sort of keep us off kilter. It's interesting that this is the one thing that has solidified everything and said, okay, where is it?
Yeah.
And what is going on? It's really interesting, and
They're mad.
they are
They're
mad, and they
mad.
should be
You
mad.
see it all
They
over
should be
social
mad.
media.
Yeah. All right, see, I don't read it.
I do.
I don't read it,
Well,
so
I
I'll
was-
take your word.
Yeah.
People are mad. Yeah.
They're very angry with him.
Yeah, well, they should be angry.
And that's the
with him.
beauty of this whole story.
Young people should be angry with him. Older people should be angry with him. Women should be angry with him. Anybody who isn't considered now an American, which we don't know what that is anymore. We don't know who is now considered American by America, who has changed the rules every couple of days on what's going. Kids are going to court by themselves.
That's a step towards tyranny.
But
It
we
is-
always thought
we're
that.
already in the tyranny. It's not a step. We're in.
I would agree.
But the
I would agree with
interesting
that.
thing about politics right now is like when he said he would grab a woman by the you-know-what, and then he made fun of the handicapped, and then he made fun of our soldiers and John McCain, et cetera. None of this mattered. This story
Yeah,
matters
but
to
because
them.
that was on its face what he was saying. He stoked conspiracy, which lets people's minds go where they want.
Yeah.
He
You can't
lied about
draw
a
those
heinous,
back.
and it's
That's
a
what it
heinous
is.
crime
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
think everyone, right, left, and center is
Yeah.
like, this is one of the most evil things you could
Yeah.
do. So it's actually really uniting
Yeah.
people.